Padres acquire Juan Soto and Josh Bell from the Nationals, and the Nationals get a third of the Padres farm system for it. They get Mackenzie Gore, Robert Hassel III, CJ Abrams, James Wood, Jarlin Susana, and Luke Voigt coming back to the Nationals to take over first base / DH duties.
Poor Luke Voigt.
What's that?
Poor Luke Voigt.
Poor Luke Voigt. Honestly, I was trying to do like winners and losers as I was trying to put this out, and like Luke Voigt was my number one loser because boy, that trade was initially Eric Hosmer, and Luke Voigt is a part of the Padres for the rest of the year. Eric Hosmer says, "Nope, I don't want to go to the Nationals. I have a no trade clause," and all of a sudden, Luke Voigt is now heading to DC. That's real rough. Real rough if you are Luke Voigt. But let's talk about Juan Soto here. Obviously, a massive haul, a massive deal. Arguably, if not the biggest trade deadline trade in the history of the trade deadline. Ryan, why don't we start off with you here? Just kind of talk to me a little bit about Juan Soto and Josh Bell going to the Nationals and how big of a deal that really is.
Sorry, I'm watching the timeline as well. Chris, you were just proven wrong. Merrifield to the Jays.
No way!
Boy, the
oh my gosh,
the vaccination status conversation really coming into play here. He has no problem getting it for a contender, as he said. But wow, that's a shocking one.
Massive deal. That is a hilariously massive deal. But yes, please wax poetically about Juan Soto now, Ryan.
I mean, the counting stats are going to be boosted. Obviously, he's going to go to a much better lineup. The ballpark's not really, I don't think, a whole much of a factor, really. Mm-hmm. It seemed like Soto in interviews, I feel like he was maybe starting to get affected by it a little bit. His numbers since the All-Star break haven't been great. Now that he can relax and he's got a really fun team to be on, I think that can only help. So what I'm trying to say is don't drop Juan Soto in your fantasy league.
That's the kind of advice you come here for. And then obviously Josh Bell getting tossed in on top. I thought that was a little surprising. I mean, I know that both of those two were going to get moved, both of them going to the same destination within the same trade. Rizzo, the GM for the Nationals, really spoke about Jarlin Susana, one of the prospects coming through, as one of the main reasons why Josh Bell was eventually included in this trade. They wanted him on the back end. Chris, briefly talk to us about obviously all of the players going back the other way, you being a prospect guy. There's a lot of prospects being discussed here, and we're not even getting to the rest of the scorched earth farm system that is now the Padres minor league affiliate.
It's crazy that they still have a couple of decent prospects in that system now, too, assuming that we're not going to hear about a couple of more trades from the Padres before we're done. Look, I mean, I think the headliner here is Abrams. Abrams is a shortstop who I think has close to a plus hit tool if everything goes right, 80 grade speed, has developed some power. He hasn't been great in his taste in the major leagues, but a lot of guys are not great in their first taste of the major leagues. He's the type of guy that you want to build a trade around. If he was still considered a prospect, you're talking about a legitimate top 10, maybe even a top 5 prospect. Mackenzie Gore, this was a guy who was considered the best pitching prospect in baseball not all that long ago. I thought really impressed me until, unfortunately, he did have the elbow injury that has shut him down. But before that, he was showing that type of stuff that made him that best pitching prospect. You can probably consider him a top 15 prospect if he had prospect eligibility. Robert Hassel is a massive get. This is an outfielder with a chance for a bunch of plus tools. Could be a middle of the order bat, has enough approach at the plate that he could even be a top of the order bat who happens to have power as well. Awfully nice get. Jarlin Susana is a name that you're going to want to keep an eye on. This was considered the best pitching prospect in a weak IFA class, but he's massive, and literally and figuratively. The guy's already 6'6", 235 pounds, and touching triple digits with his fastball. I mean, this is a haul. This is one of the, and of course, I knew I would forget one. James Wood is also massive, a 6'7" player with legitimate plus power in his left-handed bat. Some questions about whether or not he'll hit for average, but he should be a strong defender. Unfortunately, he's going to get comped to Aaron Judge just because they're both small forwards on Division I basketball teams. But there is legitimate chance for him to be a 30 to 40 home run guy if everything maxes out. You give up Juan Soto, you give up Josh Bell. but you get a lot here. I thought I would begrudge the Nationals for any type of Juan Soto trade, but they did well enough that I'm still begrudge them a little bit, but not quite as much as I thought they would.
I do find it interesting that, GMs almost never want to trade two big pieces in the same deal like that. And Mike Rizzo has now done it twice in the last two deadlines.
Yeah.
Trey Turner, Max Scherzer packaged in the same deal. Now Josh Bell and Juan Soto in the same deal. GMs almost want to separate those guys. They think they're always going to get the best return when they do separate deals. But
right.
I guess the kid, the 18-year-old, it seemed like that was the guy that they really wanted, and Josh Bell had to be included in that.
Yep.
By the way, just to interject here, it looks like the Cubs are not going to trade Wilson Contreras or Ian Happ, according to Ken Rosenthal. That's
wow.
That's certainly a decision.
That is I'll say this. I get the Ian Happ thing because you get him for next year.
Sure.
You better re-sign Wilson Contreras, man. And you still could have had a chance to sign Wilson Contreras even with a trade. I think that's a pretty massive mistake. As much as I hate to see teams selling, and I'm sure Cubs fans are really excited that they get 2 more months of him, it seems like a pretty bad baseball decision.
I mean, with no international draft, obviously the compensation pick comes back into play for the qualifying offer. You have to assume that there had to be something better than what you could get at whatever that pick would be in the 30s to 40s in the draft next year. Assuming that, of course, Contreras declines the qualifying offer, which he almost assuredly would after the season that he's having now. Ian Happ, though, again, the value, yes, you can have him for 2 more months. You can move him in the offseason now. You can move him at the trade deadline next year. But the value is so high now with him coming off of an all-star game appearance, with him basically being him and Jock Peterson really being the last big outfielders that potentially could really be an impact right now. I mean, we just see Harrison Bader get moved to the Yankees in a Jordan Montgomery trade, which is I'm still trying to understand all of that piece there. There's got to be something more coming from the Yankees just because that pitching staff finally looked full and healthy and now suddenly just lost a big piece. But there's a lot to be going on in that spot. I'm not sure how you deal. If you're the Cubs, I don't see how you can walk into this offseason. You traded David Robertson away for not particularly one of the best reliever arms on the market for not a particularly strong return. You hold on to Ian Happ and Wilson Contreras. I mean, what are you doing here?